I'm Kathy Ketchum, and I work with the Hooked on Fishing program here in Montana. The lesson we're going to do is called Gyotaku. It started in Japan in the early 1800s. The Japanese fishermen would go out on their boats for long periods of time, and because there were no refrigerators and freezers, they would have to fillet the fish and process them in order to sell it once they got to shore. And when they got to shore, they'd brag about the huge fish that they caught. And the other fishermen didn't believe it, so they started taking rice paper and ink on their boats. And if they caught an exceptionally large fish, they would make a print of it in order to have proof that, yes, indeed, their fish was as large as they said that it was. The fishermen still do that today. And they have a contest each fishing season, and those that have the largest of each different species then earn some sort of a prize. They have also used the process in order to kind of get an idea of what kind of species happen to be in each one of the fishing grounds. Here in the United States, it has become an art form. And if you Google the word Gyotaku online, you can find some beautiful examples for sale. If you ever happen to be along one of our coasts and you go into a gift store and look around, more than likely you will find some examples for sale. Some of the artists print on canvas. Some use rice paper and ink. Some, like our students, do t-shirts or sweatshirts. I've seen aprons, pottery mugs, so lots of different ways we can use it as an art form. So let's get started. First, I'm going to talk to you about the supplies that you will need. Certainly, whatever you're going to print on, it can be cloth, it can be paper, or it can be a combination of both. The ink that I use is Speedball, and it's a silkscreen ink that's made for use on fabric, and it works really well. We can heat set it with the iron, and then it becomes permanent, so the garment can be washed over and over again and won't lose its luster. All of the fish molds that I use are fish that we can catch somewhere here in Montana. Now, out of the 91, of course, we have the 56 native and the 34 introduced. Most of what I have are introduced species. These are the ones that I'm able to find online to purchase, and I get them at eNASCO, Blick, and Acorn Naturalist also have them available. You can also get a lot of saltwater species, but I like to stay with just what we have in Montana. So we have the sunfish family, which includes the bluegill, the pumpkin seed, the sunfish, and also the black and white crappie. I have 3 sizes of walleye, which are fun for the kids to print. We have the common carp in 2 sizes. I have a drum, which is one of the native species, a yellow perch. I also have both largemouth and smallmouth bass, and I have a white bass. I have the northern pike. I have a rainbow trout, but we do talk about all of the different trout species that we have in Montana. And I have a very small bass, and I have the big mouth buffalo. So lots of choices for the kids to use when they're printing. I tend to like to use the sunfish family because they have larger scales, so you get a lot more definition in your printing. So that's what I'm going to start with here. Okay, the first t-shirt I'm going to print on is black. Anything dark, the first thing you want to do with your fish is cover the entire fish with white ink. So I'm going to do that very quickly. This allows the print to show up better on the dark fabric. Okay, and as you look at my colors, you can see they aren't the colors of fish that we have in Montana. So it gives the children a chance to really use their imagination. We're going to paint wet ink right over the top, and it is going to blend the colors a little bit, which makes for really cool prints as well. And once you have your background done, and you want to let the kids know, they want to work along fairly quickly because the ink does dry, and you can't get a good print if your ink is dry. You can start adding any kind of colors that you want to add. And again, we're putting wet ink right over the top of wet ink. Okay, the next step, we want to clean up the paint area so that we can print the t-shirt. We just lay the t-shirt right over the top of the fish. Hands go inside the t-shirt to do the pressing, and it's just touching with fingers. You don't want to rub because that will make the t-shirt move, but they want to make sure that they've touched the entire fish. Some of the fish molds have indents in them, so you need to remind the students to make sure that they get their fingertips down in the t-shirt. Then, if you just very carefully pull back, if you've missed a spot, you can lay it back down if you don't take the t-shirt all the way off, and you can get it lined up. And so then you have your print. Then, in order to help clean off the fish mold and give the students a second piece of art, if you just spray a little bit of water, give them a piece of paper. They can do the same thing again, making sure that they hold the paper so that it doesn't slip slide around on them, and give them a smear. And again, you want to touch everywhere. And then they have their second piece of artwork. So for our second one, we're going to do a print on a white t-shirt. So we don't use any white ink at all. If you decide you want to try to cut down on cost, if you're doing this in your classroom and you don't want to order the white paint, then the easiest thing to do is to just stay with the lighter color t-shirts. So you do the same thing again. Remind kids if they're going to do polka dots, they want to do a base coat of color on their fish first in order to have the whole mold covered, and then they can add whatever design they want to after that so that it doesn't take them quite so much time. And again, because I don't have the actual colors of fish in Montana waters, and it takes too long to try to mix them. It's just kind of a design your own fish, which is kind of fun for the students to do the colors they think would be make an interesting fish. And again, you add your design. One thing you want to make sure that you tell the kids is they don't want any globs of paint, because when you press down on a glob of paint, that's what's going to show on your print. So they want to make sure that they kind of smooth out all of the colors that they're adding. Okay, and then again, clean up the paint area. And then we're going to lay the t-shirt over the top. Now, on the black shirt, I showed you that we put our hands inside. The main reason that we do that is because often when you press on the outside of a t-shirt, you'll start to see the ink coming through, and after we heat set it, it won't wash off. So this is the action you're doing with your fingertips. You're just making sure you touch everywhere. You can actually smooth it, but just use fingertips, because if the kids press down hard with their palms of their hands, it starts to slide the t-shirt. And again, encourage them to make sure that they've touched everywhere with their fingertips. Just slowly pull the shirt up so that if there's a missed spot, you can lay it back down again. And then you have your print. And again, with your print, if you want to, spray a little bit of water on it. Use another sheet of white paper, and they can make their second piece of art. And that one, you don't see as much of the color, but you can see a lot more of the scales and the details of the fish that are underneath the colors. If you have a student that has something that really they don't like about their print, I encourage them to make sure that they aren't going to mess up any of the details that you see. But on this one, where my eye didn't show up very well, I can always go back later and just put in just touches of color that maybe I wanted just a little bit more on my t-shirt than I got when I made my print. I do try to tell students that if you look at it, these are prints. They're not perfect like paintings, but they can go back and then add just a little bit of color if they just didn't get as much as they wanted to. Cleanup is very easy with this silkscreen ink. It's just soap and water. Obviously, we end up with it on our hands as we're printing. Soap and water takes care of it. Very, very easy for cleanup. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to make these heat set so they are permanent on the cloth. Because this is fabric ink, we can heat set it, and the iron is the best way to do that. Obviously, my irons have been used a lot. But if you have a clean iron that you don't want any ink on, you can always put a piece of paper over the top. And I use a piece of paper with my white, and I'll show you that in a minute. But you just set the iron down. It's about 45 seconds. When you lift it up, if you touch and no ink comes off, you're ready to go on. And you just keep placing the iron until you've heat set the entire fish that you've printed. Now, the important thing to tell the students if they're doing it, don't slide the iron. We lift, we put it down. If you have a large class and you're doing several irons, it's really easy. You can just place them, keep track of where you're at, and again, go back, touch, and if no paint comes off, then you're good to go. On a white t-shirt, especially if it's new, there's a chemical in the fabric called sizing. And if we press the iron right down on the white, you tend to get a yellow glow around it or a rainbow around it. So I do use paper on the white. And again, you just place it about 45 seconds. Now, some students will use lots and lots of ink, so it will take longer than 45 seconds to dry it. But for the most part, 45 seconds will do it. And again, just make sure you've dried the entire fish. And once it's done, the paper will peel right off and your fish is set and it's ready to go. Some ideas that teachers have given me, there's a school in Helena that tie-dyes their t-shirts after we print them. Then they sew up the neck and sleeves, stuff them, and make pillows for their reading area for the year. The t-shirts are great. If the kids outgrow their t-shirts, they can certainly be turned into the pillow because they will last a lot longer than the fabric. The kids will outgrow them before the fabric is worn out. And again, pillowcases, dish towels, you can print on canvas and make pictures out of them. Lots of different ideas, things that you can do with the Gyotaku. I hope you have fun.